Hey, Burned In educators. My name's Amber Harper from burnedinteacher.com and the Burned In Teacher podcast. I want to talk to you today about my conversation with Matt Miller that I had last month, and his episode just aired this week on the Burned In Teacher podcast. I learned so much about him that I didn't know. And if you've never heard of Matt Miller, he's the author of Ditch That Textbook, and you can find him on ditchthattextbook.com or on the Google Teacher Tribe with Casey Bell. So during our conversation, we talked about a lot of things that teachers struggle with. And he shared with me his journey from working at a newspaper out of college to going to the classroom to teach high school Spanish out of a textbook. He realized it wasn't working, so he made a change. He literally ditched his textbooks in the middle of class one day and had his kids put them in a cabinet in the back of the room. So the title of his book, Ditch That Textbook, is not a gimmick. It literally is what he did, and he just wrote about it. If you haven't read the book, DITCH is actually an acronym. So as he was sharing his story of his journey, I happened to think, my gosh, as educators, we can ditch that burnout as well. So I borrowed his acronym with his permission, of course, wrote a blog post about it, titled our episode, Ditch That Burnout with Matt Miller. And here are the 5 ways that you can ditch that burnout. During this time that I'm sharing these different ways you can ditch your burnout, comment below and tell me what you're struggling with, number 1, and how you're going to ditch that burnout. Okay, so number 1 is D. D stands for differently. Think differently, but don't just stop there. Think, act, and feel different, even if you're faking it. Think of fake it till you make it. But the more that you actually go through that act of saying, I am going to be different, I am going to feel different, you're actually going to take actions to make it the truth. So most of the reason that teachers join my free private Facebook group, the Burned In Teacher Facebook group, is because they feel so much pressure. They feel overworked. They don't have that work-life harmony that we're all searching for as educators. So one thing that I want to use that reason for burnout, which would be classified as worn out burnout, is let's use that as our example. So if someone is feeling overworked by all of their high expectations, all of the grading, all of the planning for their different preps, let's say the teacher wants to think differently about that. They might say, how might I use my prep time and time with my students differently? And that may require you to actually just tear down everything and start from scratch. Sometimes that's the best way to really start to live a new life, is by tearing it all down and building it back up from the ground. So you don't necessarily have to do it that way, but you may need to. So have an open mind, think, feel, and act differently. Okay. The second way is point is I. Innovate. Now, obviously, innovate means think outside the box. Do something completely new. Now, you can innovate in a couple of different ways, and George Couros is really good at explaining this. Innovation can be something that you create 100% on your own. No one's ever done it before. But innovation can also be borrowing somebody else's idea and adapting it to what it is that you need and making small changes to make it yours and make it work for you. Okay, so if you are a teacher that's struggling with a high workload, a lot of stress, a lot of pressure, high expectations, create and try. And this is the hardest part, is trying new things, especially if you're someone who is very, very in strong habits, then this is going to be difficult for you, but I promise it's worth it. Create and try new habits, new procedures, new ways of doing things that can help you to streamline and simplify your practices at school, whether it be with how you plan or how you grade. Think about the time that you spend with your students. Could you use that time differently and innovate new ways to take those grades or to plan your lessons? Okay. The third one is T, tech laden. Now you can use tech to, of course, engage your students. We all know that technology is a great way to keep students engaged and really get them in tune to their learning. But you can use that technology to serve you. All right. And not just in your professional life, but in your personal life as well. So I'm encouraging you to have to ditch that burnout by using technology to do two things. Number one, see what other people are doing. By doing a simple Google search or a YouTube search, people are out there sharing everything that they're doing to simplify their life as a teacher or connect with their students better, change their practices to become more engaged educators and not just to engage their students, okay? So that's the first way you can use technology. The second way is to automate and simplify what you're already doing. So I mentioned earlier that sometimes you may have to tear down everything and build it back up, but that's not necessarily the case for everything that you're doing. I know that since you're here and you found this video, that you're already searching for ways to ditch that burnout. So there might just be little tweaks that you can do to your instruction or during your planning periods or your collaboration, small tweaks that can have huge impacts on how you teach, how you plan, how you grade. And I promise you it is worth taking those chances and taking the time to look things up and see what other people are doing. And it may require you to learn something new, but I am telling you it will be worth it. That's exactly how I learned how to streamline my practices as a teacher as well. The fourth one is C, create. Now, creation in essence really requires you to get messy, break stuff, and either put it back together or toss it and start over. Now, Matt talks about this a lot in our interview. He talks about how, and I love this analogy, and I've heard it before too, is he felt like at times he was building the plane as it was falling to the ground. And really, isn't that how we feel already as educators? So it's not going to be a whole lot different to try to create new ways of doing things, trying, failing. And you may or may not have heard this. Fail is actually the first attempt in learning, and we should be teaching our students that in the first place. So we need to take our own advice, try new things, fail, come back, try it again. And I have a couple of things that I wrote down that Matt said that really stuck with me. He said that he was uncomfortable a lot when he was trying new things. He wasn't a tech genius when he started using G Suite tools with his kids. He was just a regular person. He still is just a regular person, but he's taken risks. He's taken the time to learn, and now he's sharing it with others. And at first, he was sharing it with his students. How powerful is that? He says that he felt uncomfortable a lot, but he embraced it and he just continued to learn from his failures. He said if it didn't work, he didn't consider it a failure. He considered it a data point. He learned something from it and he moved on. He didn't ever get those textbooks back out. And look where he is now. He's an author, he's a speaker. He is serving teachers all over the United States and helping them how to learn how to use these tools to engage their students and engage themselves in their learning. All right. Oh, I love this too. I wrote this down. He said, teaching is an exercise in adaptation. How true is that? We make more minute-by-minute decisions than brain surgeons. I mean, think about that. It's so amazing to think how powerful our instruction is, how powerful we are as people, what amazing humans we are to be teaching students, and what great examples we can be to our kids by showing them how to try things, fail, try again, fail again, and keep going. And the final thing is, number 5 is H, hands on. So many times we either take a hands off or a hands up approach to our lives. Hands off being, it's just the way it is. I just have to keep doing it because this is the way it's always been and it's the way it's always going to be. Or a hands up approach where we're defending what we've always done. This has always worked before. Why isn't it working now? It's time to take a hands on approach. Taking control of this vehicle that is your life and turning the wheel and going a different direction. If what you're doing isn't working for you right now, the past is the past. Okay? What worked last week may not work this week. What worked with last year's class or the class 5 years ago may not work this year. In fact, it probably won't. So don't be afraid to take control of your steering wheel and actually do something different. Drive down a different path. Actually get off of the interstate that you're on and go a different direction altogether. Okay? We have to take control because no one else is going to take control for us. Or you could actually think of it as, if we don't take control of our lives, someone else is going to take control of it for us. And who wants that? All right. So those are the 5 ways to ditch that burnout. D, think differently. Think, act, and feel differently. The second one is I, innovate. Create something new for yourself or adapt something else that someone has already created and try new things. T is tech laden. Use technology to either find what other people are doing that's working or to streamline your own practices and procedures. Create is actually get messy, try things, break stuff, put it all together, throw it away, try something new. And 5 is hands-on. Get your hands on your own life. That, my friends, is the only way you're going to ditch that burnout. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you took something away from it. Please comment below and tell me what you're going to do today to ditch your own burnout. Also, please like and subscribe. I'm going to come on here live every week talking about conversations I've had with educators or experts on the Burned In Teacher podcast and what I've written about on the blog. I want you to have every opportunity to get your hands on this information that I'm learning and that I'm implementing in my own education journey. Okay? Also, don't forget to go to iTunes or Google Play, and soon I'm going to be on more platforms, and search for the Burned In Teacher podcast. Subscribe and give me a review or a rating and let me know how I'm doing and how I can better serve you. Finally, jump into Facebook/groups/Burned In Teacher and join my free private Facebook group where I have over 200 educators who are taking control of their life and ditching that burnout. I'll see you next week. Burn on.